Hello, contractors, and welcome to the Toolbox for the Trades, the show where we share the top tricks, tips, and tactics from service professionals worldwide. Today, I'm speaking with Chloe and Ben Davis, the father-daughter duo who run Express Plumbing, Heating, and Air in Idaho. I spoke with them about the power of mentorship, investing and learning, and how implementing best practices is the easiest, hardest thing you'll ever do, but so worth it. After learning from their mentors, Chloe and Ben were able to triple the size of their shop. I hope you find this episode as informative and entertaining as I did. Chloe Davis and Ben Davis from Express Plumbing, Heating, and Air in Idaho. Welcome to the Toolbox for the Trades podcast.
Hey. Excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you guys here. You've been a part of the ServiceTitan community for a really long time. You're some of our most vocal customers. Chloe, you and I have partnered on webinars before. You guys are such advocates, and I'm delighted to have you here. And we're really going to talk today about how you guys have went from being mentees to mentors in just a few years. So I'm really excited about that. But before we even get into that, I'm going to start this podcast the way I do every single one, which is, how did you get into the trades? And Ben, you can take this answer first.
How did I get into the trades? Well, I guess I was just a young man. I was framing houses way back in 1999. And the guy that I was framing houses for, he decided to start a plumbing company up and with another guy. And that didn't work out. So he would always bring the plumbing van to where we were framing houses. And one day he's like, hey, can you go run a service call? And I went and ran a service call, and I did a terrible job for the customer. I think I ran a main line and charged the customer like $40. But I fell in love with the trade. I absolutely love the trade. So I was like, yeah, get out of the framing of the houses. And, I actually started my own company right after that. I was 21 years old. I started AAA Rooter, and I ran it for 9 months, and I failed.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Bad. And so 9 months, I had a big phone book bill and all that, and I was trying to sell my equipment and sell everything that I had. So that's how I got my first real plumbing job, was calling around the local plumbing shops trying to sell my stuff.
And they were like, oh, and are you a plumbing tech as well? And you're like, yeah. They're like, oh, come on board.
No, I was a terrible plumbing tech. I didn't know nothing. I even showed up to the interview with holes in my pants. I was poor. I was so poor. We were living in a trailer park, and yeah, I'm really glad they gave me a chance though, because it started a whole new career for me. Just a path that I love now.
That's awesome. And I would love to learn how. And I actually want to clarify real quick. Chloe and Ben, you are a father-daughter duo. I realized that if I did not clarify that already, people would assume you're married. And if they watch the video, they'll be like,
get that a lot. Yeah.
So Chloe, obviously know how you got into the trades. You were kind of born into it. But,
yeah.
But Ben, I would love to, if you could tell me when you started Express Plumbing. So it sounds like you started one business, didn't work out the way you wanted it to, got back into the trade. It provided a great career and a life path for you. So when did you go back out and say, okay, I'm going to try it again?
In 2006, just like everybody else in the trade, felt like I could do it better. Felt like I wasn't being appreciated by my skills and abilities that I had at that time. And the boss ended up saying a couple things to me. There's a technician that was side jobbing, and we jumped in the van to go spy on him side jobbing and confront him on a job in our van. And we were sitting out in front of the house, and we're watching this technician do a service call with our equipment in our van. And he just looked at me and he said, the difference between me and you is that I'm a white-collared business owner and you're a blue-collared employee, and you could never be what I am. So that kind of got my gears running, and I went home and I talked to my wife, and I just said, I really want to give this another shot. And she said, go for it. So 10 days later, I just fired up my own business again and quit my job.
Nice. And that was in 2006?
Yeah, it was May 10th of 2006 was my very first day out on my own. And, I didn't know anything. Oh, man.
You didn't know anything 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Talk about a nightmare. I think I started off in a 1989 Ford Econoline van. Every day I went and got suckers and chocolates and everything that you could imagine. I just went door to door to every business in this valley. I just hit them all. I ended up with like 191 property management companies, McDonald's, Walmart's. I mean, I was everywhere by the end of it. And it was kind of weird too. Like my first month was 10 calls. My second month was 20 calls. Third month was 40 calls. And it just kind of doubled every time. I got all the way up to 130 jobs a month within 6 months and never looked back. I mean,
Dang.
it was pretty cool.
That'd be scary to do that much in a month now.
Yeah.
So,
Man,
Chloe,
we were so cheap.
So Chloe, this was all happening while you were growing up, and I would love to learn when you first decided to join Express officially, and when you decided to commit to it as a career.
Well, it was kind of right after I graduated high school. It was the question of like, all right, well, what are you gonna do? And I'm like, oh. He's like, well, why don't you, work at Express while you at least, start your college career and start figuring that out. And I said, okay. And I had taken a lot of college courses in high school, so I had a lot of credits, but they were to like science and like just stuff to be like a radiologist. So more along that lines. And so I started going to school. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and get an entrepreneurial bachelor's degree because that's going to teach me everything about business. And no matter where I go, it would be really good to have that type of knowledge because I think that's anywhere you go is a business, anywhere. So I was like, this is going to be really great foundational knowledge. And I kind of started working at Express. I was marketing, and I like to put that in quotes because all I did was just post memes. Yeah, Chloe's marketing. And it's just like, that's how I got hired on the second time around was marketing. I had worked a little bit in the call center during like summer between junior and senior year. But after I graduated, then it's like, all right, well, Chloe's marketing. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I like the idea behind marketing just because I knew I didn't know it. And that's the part that I really liked. It was like that challenge of like, oh, okay, there is something deeper to marketing. There's a psychological part of it. There's the way you put your colors, the way you use your fonts, like all this stuff that like I really like the undertones of how you say things or what you do. So I really liked that, but I never really had gotten there at that point in time, so all I did was just post memes, or I didn't know what to say about the company, or who I was talking to, or, I had no idea about demographics and how to angle that type of message to them. So I had taken a couple courses in business, and it kind of started, like, rolling a little bit, and, like, clicking, and I remember my first marketing course we had taken, we had already shot our first commercial by then, and had already done radio commercials. Our first commercial, it's really cool, but it definitely has no target demographic on it, and the message isn't clear, now that I know that. But I remember taking my first marketing course and being like, oh, this is amazing. And I just started loving Express more and more as I just kept working with it and getting to know the people, and just our overall like vision and mission is like, it's always been to make it a really good place to work for everybody. That's just ever since I was growing up, or ever since I had started the company, that was just number one goal, was like, we need to make a place where everybody, this is their career, they can, everybody can be successful here. So I think that was like the biggest thing that I really liked about it, and definitely in my core now, I think that's like my biggest thing I always think about is like, no, it's not just a business, this is a place that affects, families, a lot of families, to keep them food on the table. And it's really cool when you get to hear that, you know, an employee who just got on bought their very first car. And they're driving around, like, pulling up, and it's really cool to watch their lives excel. So I think it was just also in my blood. I can't really pinpoint, like, an exact moment, but I'm like, yeah, because it just kind of blended all together into, like, yeah, I'm here. This is awesome.
That's great. And you've been there now full-time for how many years? Like 2 or 3, something like that?
5.
5
5
dang.
years. So I graduated in 2017
Got it.
from high school.
That's right. You and I first got acquainted during, I feel like, the pandemic time warp. So I
Yeah,
can't.
like around
What's time?
2019.
Who knows?
Yeah. yeah. Those years blend together, to be honest.
Yeah.
2020 was not a year
No, it was not.
in my head.
So I didn't send you guys this question before ahead of time. I just thought of it now. But Ben, I'm curious. Did you ever think of creating the business as a place for your children to work at, for Chloe to work at one day? Was that ever in your mind?
I don't think so. Growing up the way I grew up, I always was expecting the shoe to drop, right? I always expected somebody to take this away from me or for me to lose it somehow. And even as it was growing, there was moments, I mean, I think every business owner goes through it, where you just almost want to quit or shut the door because it's overwhelming what you have to learn or what you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So the first 9 years, I would say at least 4 times in that time period, I thought I was going to lose it or I thought it was going to be taken away from me somehow. So it was a job that I was just trying to keep. It's great to have a business and it's great to grow, but you have to grow as a person too. And that's something that we all have to really reflect on if we want to accomplish this, because we are managing people. So we have to come up with a clear vision for them and, help them achieve goals too. And you kind of lose that when you're just running with it. You're so focused on that next bid or that next project or, running out here and make sure that we're boring in this line correctly or, and you're just working. It's like 16-hour days all the time and you're not getting paid very much either. So it's a lot of stress. Now I can see that it is that, by far. Yeah. It's a awesome business with amazing people and has a great culture and we can see it, how it is. Like it's kind of untouchable, really, with the people and the education within it.
That's awesome.
So
thanks for answering that.
But yeah, I always thought we were always going to lose it.
No, yeah. I mean, I think you really spoke to the
scary.
first few years of being in business and starting a business. There's so much stress. There's so much stuff you have to focus on. What makes the business great now, which is that great culture that you both said, which, by the way, total theme throughout this podcast. It's hard to do that when you're just figuring out where's my next job coming from. Am I going to be able to keep the lights on? It's so tough. So we're going to get into some of the mentors you guys had a few years ago. Chloe already kind of said about 2 years ago is when some really cool stuff started happening. But before we get into that, I would love to know, how's the company doing today? And you guys can answer that however you want in terms of number of employees, annual revenue, average ticket, whatever you want the world to know.
Well, you answer that.
Oh, you want me to answer
Yeah,
that
go
in
for
terms of
it.
how the company's doing? I think our biggest thing is, like, every time that we think we have it, we, like, find something else that we're like, oh, we could have been doing this better. But definitely lately, I feel like our biggest stepping stone has been, like, our managerial processes and just kind of going back up to that top layer now. So now the company, I'm really excited about HVAC. It's growing at 143% right now per month, which they're killing it. I'm loving it. I'm like, come on, HVAC. I want HVAC to be bigger than plumbing. We grew $2 million last year. Our budget's predicting 10.5 this year from what we're going to be doing, and I couldn't be more happier, more prouder of all the changes that we have been making and just the more clarity we've been gaining on it. So I think it's more of less of like just our clarity of how to manage people better and have them have clear expectations and goals set for them that I kind of achieve our success off of, not necessarily like, the revenue amount, because that'll come. Like, our growth's been coming with that. So we've been really, really proud of that.
That's awesome. I'm so happy for you
Yeah.
guys. That's so great. So, again, you both credited learning and networking to the explosive growth that you guys have had recently, all of the ways that you guys are streamlining. And I know a lot of it came just from talking to people, from recruiting mentors. So, going into the subject of mentors, who would you say have been some of your most influential?
Joe Casera.
Uncle Joe?
Yeah, Uncle Joe.
Definitely one of the. I mean, I can barely go a week without him sending me a text message, or cause we have a group with him,
Yeah.
and he sends it like,
How's
"Hey
it
guys,
going?"
how's it going?" And, "Oh, I'll do a call with you guys next week." He's just got a real special spot in our heart.
Yeah.
And his knowledge is so extensive on everything. Yeah, Tom Howard, just for the 2.5 days that he came down to our shop, because he showed us things that I didn't like. I used to have bankers come up, and bankers would always be like, "Oh man, you know your numbers so well. You're so smart." And when you surround yourself around people that are just telling you that you're good at something, you don't realize how bad you are at something. And having Tom Howard come down here, it was like, oh wow, we're not
like,
good at anything.
Do you know this? Do you know that? And
Yeah.
we're like, oh, that's a thing. That's a number you need to track.
So to see that guy like spin off for 2.5 days, and he just jumped from one thing to the next and next. He created us a budget, and then he chopped up our overhead, and then he showed us how to chop up our overhead per employee that we had, and then he drew a big circle on the board, and he's like, okay, this is your marketing dollars, now watch this. And I mean, he just like blew our minds for 2.5 days, and then he just vanished like a little,
Like a little, yeah. He's like a just
little
a
Lucky Charm, just gone.
yeah, just gone by.
And we're like, come back, like
He just blew our minds.
Yeah, visit us again. But he, to me, like what he was doing, because he gave me a call and he was like, hey, how's it going? How's your business going? And I kind of talked to him, and he's like, oh, well, I'll come down in a couple of weeks and maybe a month, and we'll kind of dissect it and see what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. And that was on a Thursday. Then he calls up on a Friday morning. He's like, I'll be there Monday. I'm like, geez Louise, like, we're not
So
even
we're like,
prepared for
okay.
you. But from there on, I mean, I like text him every once in a while, or I'll send him a gift, like, you're number one. I more or less just mess with him at this point in time. I don't really get any valuable information from him anymore. Just because he's fun to mess with. I mean, he's a great guy, and
Very smart.
very smart.
Very smart.
We get to the point where we have most of the answers, and it's not a matter of getting any more answers. It's a matter of applying every day. So that's the big wall that we're against. Like,
Yeah.
we can go out and we can talk to Ishmael or Tommy Mello or Tom Howard or, Al Levy. We have so many friends that we can network with all the time. Like, Al blew our mind.
Yeah, man, he is so smart too.
Yeah.
He blew our mind. He sits down there, he just laces it out, and you're like, oh, okay. I thought I knew it all. Once again, you never know it all, but man, he can definitely just, oh, that's your problem? Okay, here's your solutions. All right, now you're good. And you're like, oh, okay, was that easy? Oh, okay.
Well, then he's sending emails, and then, I mean,
Yeah.
these guys just...
Oh, they care so much.
Yeah, so much about the industry, and they dive so deep into helping us. But then we just have to go quiet for a while because, I mean, we have to apply. And applying can take 3 months, 6 months. I mean, it takes a long time to put something new in place and then test it out for a long period of time. So we visited like 10 shops. We had a whole bunch of shops come to our shop. We had a whole bunch of, training coaches come to our shop. We just we threw out $350,000 to learn in the last 2 years. And this year we cut that budget down to almost zero, and we're just trying to put every piece into play that these awesome people have taught us, because
That's what we can do to show them that we've listened and that we really love their valuable information they gave us, you know. I think that was like one of our biggest struggles in terms of our, like, us mentoring others, is like we noticed that, you know, we would say, all right, here it is, X, Y, and Z, and next meeting, KG, X, Y, and Z. No, I didn't have time. You're like, you're always going to be busy, so stop with that. You know, you have to focus on your vital few. What's urgent and what's important that you need to get done today. Because 20% of what you do gets you 80% of the results. So when we listen to all of our mentors and all these, you know, everybody that we love tell us, you know, hey, you need to do this, this, and this. We're like, now we need to get to the point where it's like, let's just put our nose to the ground and just run with it and apply as much as we can. I mean, we were applying during it, but, you know, you just hear so many amazing ideas.
Yeah.
Everybody does everything just slightly different. And I'm gonna be honest, I've seen a lot of different companies, and there isn't, obviously there is, but there honestly isn't like a wrong way to run your business. It's about doing it consistently. You have to be disciplined to do that every single day, every hour on the hour. So that's where we're getting to the point where it's like, okay, we've learned all this stuff. Let's just pick the one way, do it consistently, and then when we want to make it more efficient and more effective, then we can start making those tiny tweaks that everybody's talking about. But that's the cool part and the hard part about reaching out so much, is that everybody has their own opinions and ways to do it, and it is working for them. Everybody's doing something right and everybody's doing something wrong.
I love everything you all just said for the last few minutes. And I just want to tell you, Chloe, that you just echoed the words of Jamie DiDomenico, who was the founder of Cool Today, who, when he came on the podcast, he said, doesn't matter if you learn all these things, all it matters is that you implement and you're consistent with it. So I just wanted to make that, because Jamie's a very successful business person. And
there's no such thing as secret sauce. It's all about just applying it. There's no secret way to do a business. I'm gonna be honest. Everything that we've learned, there's no secret to it. Matter of fact, we were trying to complicate it too much.
Yeah.
Oh, it can't be that easy. Oh, the KPIs can't be this simple. No, they are. So stop complicating them. It was like the biggest thing we had to get over our brain. Like we talk to our leadership team, and sometimes the response was like, well, we don't know it, or we don't know the standard. We're like, you were trained 4 different times on this. You just need to believe it and stick with it. So just applying is like the biggest thing. Even if it is, you don't know 100% if it is the right way, just apply it. Just run.
Yeah. And I just want to highlight real quick, because you just threw out a bunch of names, all of which have been on the podcast, by the way. So thank you for validating my guest choice. Al Levy, he really preaches org charts and organizational settings. Ishmael Valdez from NextGen and Tom Howard from Service Titan really preach KPIs. And Joe Crisara, really big into sales processes.
Yes.
I think you threw in another
That's
name
just
in there too.
all of those right there is like how to run a business.
Yeah.
So
You-
org charts and processes.
You make them all your friends, you're going to be perfectly
That's it.
fine.
That's your business right there.
That's a secret sauce, honestly. So, and I love that you just went into, okay, I really just I wish I could give you both like nice hugs for way to put so much money into learning and development. That is awesome. So now that you guys have taken a step back, you're mentoring other shops, which we'll get to in a second. I want to know, like, what process do you go through internally amongst each other, maybe among your leadership team, where you figure out, okay, we learned this from Joe. We're going to implement it and we're going to track it. Like, what does that process look like when you actually identify a new thing you want to try out? How do you implement it? How do you measure it? What does that look like?
You want to take it or you want me to take it?
You go for it.
Definitely implementing it. It's got to be their idea. It can't just be, unfortunately, like what Joe says or what these people say. It's got to be their idea. You know, people are going to push it harder when they actually have a say and are able to help. So what we have implemented isn't 100% of what we've learned, even though we know that way is better. You know, it's got to be what our team believes in, because when they believe in it and they helped create it in some capacity, even if we have a template or something to create it off of, they're going to stick to it more and believe in it more. So that was the area that we were having struggles with, is like, okay, boom, Joe process done in a box, can sell now. We didn't sell. No, like not what we were wanting to, not the goals that we were wanting to hit. So it got to the point where we had to take a step back and look at our leadership team and say, do you even believe in this? And they're like, well, we watch the videos, and you're like, oh, okay, okay. I love our team; they're amazing. But this is what all businesses are going to struggle with, just so you know. So you can't just hire a sales company and be like, boom, boom, pats off the back, here it is, there's a sales system. No, you have to make it your way, the express way, the, whatever your name company is. You can't just be, oh, this is this way. No, like service MVP way, that's what our foundation's built off of, but it has to be our way. So once we finally sit down and get the leadership team to write it down, we literally put the steps and then why we do each step. Why is each step valuable? And it turns out to be a pretty big document, but you have to explain the why to your employees. Why do we do this step? Why do we put out a rug at the door? Like, they have to understand that it's not just a step that you need to follow. There's actual value behind it, and there's a certain result you'll get from it. So everything down from just handing over a business card, we put down the whys. And then after that, we said, hey, here are the standard KPIs. All right, now let's go ahead and just start coaching guys and evaluating them on their process, seeing what they need, what their strengths are, and what their opportunity for improvement are. Sit down with them, go over goals, launch them out there, bring them back with the follow-up. Are they doing it? It's just a whole accountability process that you have to implement and maintain.
Well, and we sent out, so we made the management team come up with their own process on it, and then we sent the management team out in the field and made them complete the process so they believed in it, so they knew it worked. The biggest thing is it ended up being where nobody believed in it. And we're just making people watch videos, or we're making people memorize a script, but they didn't believe in it. So once we came up with our own, they came up with their own. Then they were able to practice it on their own, and then they truly did believe in it. Like, we sent out Brad, which has been our COO of the company for 11 years. He's been out in the field he went out in the field for about a month, and he crushed it.
He freaking killed it.
He crushed it.
That's because oh my god,
it was amazing.
So
like,
proud.
Average ticket of like $2,600. Customers are raving about it.
100% close rate. Like,
it was amazing.
Blowing my mind. But he was the one that when we role played with him, like, role play, okay? Role play constantly. When we role played with him, he was the one that naturally did it and got every single step from memory. My mind was blown. I'm like, how come you haven't been pushing this out, dude? Like, you know it like the back of your hand, But yeah, he went out there and freaking killed it, which is awesome. But I think we all hear that expression of don't work in your business, work on your business. Well, there's a certain point in time where you get big enough where you have to work a little bit in and then on your business. And I heard that from Anna Yano from Rhino Strategic Solutions. She did a podcast with Chris, and they kind of really talked about that, and I really like that expression because I've heard that a lot, work on your business, not in. But at a certain point in time, you get so disconnected from those processes and from what your standards are that you don't really know if they're achievable, if they're clearly communicated, or whatever it may be. So when we did send out our management team back in it was like, hey, work in and on. Now you have firsthand experience of what these techs are going through, not just sitting back and saying, hey, we should do this. Well, okay, so but what do they feel like out in the field when we implement something like that? Is it actually efficient? Is it effective? Or is it a nuisance? You can't mess with these guys' head. They got to go out there and they got to perform really well. So support them in the field by making processes that are really good to follow that make their jobs as efficient as possible.
It's a feedback loop.
Being part of the Rhino family is amazing.
Yeah,
Rhino.
I've had.
I almost did like a I guess it's just like a one little unicorn rhino horde.
We've had Chris on this
That's a
podcast
powerhouse
too.
right
So yeah, and his podcast is wonderful.
Love Chris.
Love Chris and love Anna. She's the real deal over there. I love her.
She's a powerhouse. Amazing.
I just want to recap what you said because, again, it was just so good. It's like you're not only defining the why of why you do these processes, but you're also inviting feedback and allowing collaboration with your team members, with your management team. So you guys as the owners aren't we are doing it this way because this person told me. It's like, hey, this person told me this. Like, what do you think about that? Like, let's talk about it. Let's see if we can make it work for us. I love that approach.
Well, that's when the real results started clicking.
Yeah.
I mean, we just had so many people come into our shop and so many people trying to make us change direction. And then we were going to other shops and we were learning little bits and pieces and trying to change directions. But until we made it our own, it didn't take off like a rocket ship like it is now, which is absolutely so blessed.
It was really amazing too, because we had, ServiceTitan, which is an absolutely amazing tool where we were able to get these KPIs and get these standards and then be able to use forms and Content Portal. We use Content Portal a lot for more like individual interactions. So when these guys set up goals, their goals are only published for them, so they can constantly see like what's their next goal they want to hit. We also utilized it for publishing the Express Way. So we published it, we gave them a whole week to read it, and then we brought every single tech in groups or one-on-one and sat them down. What do you think? Is this achievable? And got their verbal and physical commitment to doing it. Because it wasn't like just us publishing it and the leadership team believing it. It was, okay, guys, bringing them in and saying, how do you feel about these goals? And went over everything with it, all the way down to how that affected the profitability of the company for them. So they were able to see a breakdown of that. And every single one of them, like, it was really great to see it, because once it was published, you could tell that people were like, oh. But once we sat down with everybody and went over it and talked to explain it to them and coached them over some mental barriers. There was a couple of guys that had some mental barriers, that they were feeling, kind of torn between the standard and how they could achieve it, but we were able to bring him in and help tear it down. And I am so proud of like some of these guys, like light switch, like crazy light switches out there, and we're just pumping them up and so excited to see it. So it was really cool getting their verbal and written commitment that this is achievable and that they do believe in it. And if they had anything they wanted to say to us, we listened, and we would bring it back and talk about it and then publish what we thought was a good tweak to the standard process. So it was really cool listening to their feedback and getting that love.
That's awesome.
I think it's so cool that we're coming to you live from Van 145.
Yeah, Van 145.
This is a real van. Like, we're live inside of a real van.
This is a real service van, just so you know.
This baby's got 30,000 miles on it. It's already done a couple million.
She got full tank of gas today.
Yeah.
Guys, if I had a driveway and I could broadcast my podcast from my van, I would. For anyone who's not watching the video, we upload this video on YouTube. Most people listen to it on the podcast feed, but Ben and Chloe have a wonderful van setup. It looks very clean from what I can say, by the way. Like, it looks very clean.
Well, that's our standard, so.
Well, this is one of our favorite guys' vans. His name is Chance, one of the most amazing technicians you ever seen in his life. And the only reason why the van's here right now is because he's having heart surgery. He had heart surgery yesterday. He had a stroke 2 months ago, 25 years old, and he had a stroke. During
work, too. He called up management, and Brad, drove over there to go pick him up and drove him to the hospital. Like, he had a stroke while he was, in the van. He pulled over, and Brad went and, took him to the hospital and everything. And
so he'll be back with us by the end of the month. We're taking care of him fully right now, but this van's lucky. The guy that rides around this van gets hundreds of 5-star reviews, crushes it every day. Amazing guy. We love Chance.
Yeah, he's just one of those really genuine, just amazing people. He's just so ethical, moral, happy. I don't know. He's kind of the perfect tech in my opinion, just because of his overall personality and abilities to work. So. I'm very proud to have him on our team. He's rocking it out.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well,
Ben hired him. Ben met him at a funeral and hired him on the spot.
my best friend died, and he was related to my best friend. So I saw him across the way, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I got to go talk to that guy. And I convinced him to quit his job and come be a plumber for me.
Well, that is certainly one recruiting strategy we have not heard on the podcast yet, but good to know. Always be recruiting, not ABC, not ABC.
Always be recruiting.
Wait, is it ABC? Always be closing? Yeah, no, it's ABR. Always be recruiting.
Yeah.
Parentheses, even
ABR.
when at a funeral. Okay, so you guys have learned so much from mentors. I want to talk about now how you guys are starting to become mentors, because you're having a lot of folks visit your shop. You're really open. You always invite people to come. When they do, what are the top tactics and insights that you like to share? And I know we've probably covered a few of them, but is there any big ones that come to mind?
Well, we started training or meeting with companies every 2 weeks. We had 4 companies that we were meeting with every 2 weeks. It was great. We saw some of them be able to grow a million and a half within a short period of time, just by applying things. I think the thing that we learned the most was this is so big and there's so many pieces to it. It's really, I mean, we can boost them up, we can inspire them, and we can give them like a couple little pieces, but to get them to recognize the whole picture is so hard to do. And a lot of times they slide right back into their old spots that they were.
Yeah.
Or they just won't do something like buy a van, or they just won't change. So it did become a little frustrating for us because, if they miss a meeting with us, like we're free, we're not even charging them. And we're like, oh, come on, you missed the meeting. Like, this is ridiculous. Or it was like every week or every other week, we're telling them to do the same thing and they're just not doing it. So then we go 2 months and we're like, guys, you have to change your ways. You have to change.
And then they'll do it like 3 months after I was telling them to do it, and they're like, "Wow, you're right." We're like, "Oh," but then we tell them to do something else, and then it takes even more. Like it wasn't necessarily like you pushed a ball off of a mountain and it started getting snow. It was like we pushed it a little bit on a flat surface and then pushed it again. So
sorry, there was a couple companies though. Aaron Quality Plumbing Today. Oh man, that guy is a beast.
He just runs.
Chris Hunter hooked me up with that guy. He was buying a septic truck, and Chris Hunter told him to call me because I have septic trucks. But that kid applies everything you tell him. He'll do it like right on the spot, and grows really quickly.
We're like, why don't you go buy a van or two? And he's like, I bought 3.
So we had a lot of shops come to our shop, which we would give them a week. And we would break down everything. So we would break down our forecasted budget, our capacity planning,
KPIs,
all of our KPIs that we track. They would be part of our daily huddle.
They could go on a service van ride with techs.
Yeah, so we didn't hold anything back. Whatever we learned or whatever we did, every day we just invested full days into these companies. Just to try to give them something that was never given to us.
Also coach them on their Service Titan profiles to help them
rebuild that.
Get that KPI. Because I know like Titan, there's a lot of different ways you could do that. So taking a step back and just helping kind of explain like the best ways to do things in Titan and how to understand the KPIs you're getting. Like even to this day, I get a lot of our leadership team that comes up to me and is like, how is this calculated? And I'm like, explain this like 4 times, but I do mine, but sometimes I don't. I'm like, all right, I gotta explain it again. It just keeps me on my toes, but I definitely take for granted like how well I know Titans link together and how everything's calculated. Because I could pull out everything and tell you, how every tiny little KPI is calculated in Titan, but a lot of the team and the people we're coaching had no idea. So their average ticket, they had no idea what it was actually calculating to get their average ticket, so it's kind of hard to help them manage their KPIs. That's why it's hard, too, when you're, on all the different groups and people are talking about their KPIs and average tickets. I think one of my favorites was somebody had just gone on Titan. They're like, my average ticket's lower than my other program. How do I make it go up? And I was like, oh my gosh. Do you know how it was calculated before so you can get the same calculations so you can guarantee similar results to a transition? Or do you want to calculate it differently? There's just a lot of questions I had with that one. I was like, oh, okay.
It was, trying to teach guys not to, shame their people.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't know how to fill out invoices, so I'm gonna go in front of his peers and rub his nose in it. I'm like, don't do that, Or I think the most exciting part about having him here for a week was watching my whole entire team have to train another company. It actually benefited us quite a bit to watch, our project manager have to train another company, or a technician have to train another company, or us even have to explain everything that we do. Because sometimes we'd be like, maybe we should change this because it doesn't quite make sense when we're explaining it.
Yeah, we're like, oh, okay.
But we're not going to do that anymore. Steve Akins was supposed to be here next week, but he canceled on us. And that's one thing that we'll put out, we put out the rug. We're here to help you, but we have so many people either call a whole bunch of times and never show up, or they say they're going to show up and they never show up. and it's like, man, we got to focus on us, and we can't continue to, be set up like that.
I think the other thing that we're realizing, though, and Ben and I were kind of talking about it the other day, was just how complex it actually is. Like, if we were to, just us, talk to ourselves 2, 3, 4 years ago, like just us right now talking to our past selves, it would have gone all over our head, and we would have said that doesn't work, too. So there's another part behind actually seeing everything click together rather than being told how to do it. Because one action in your business affects a bunch of other areas, indirectly or directly. So you never know what results you're actually going to get, especially when you're changing so much so quickly, because everything interacts with each other. Your business is a living, breathing person, and it's got a lot of people in there with a lot of emotions, so it is really hard to change a lot. But if we were to explain what we're doing nowadays, oh my gosh, I think we would laugh at our faces. Like,
Yeah.
You're doing what? That doesn't work. You can't do that. Don't get, so I think it's a grain of salt too with a company that's learning, because there's other things they have to learn prior to the knowledge we already have that we had to quickly run with.
Or just trying to get a guy to stop getting in a van. You're like,
Yeah.
so you're going to stop running service calls, right? And then you talk to him 2 weeks later. He's like,
Still in a van.
I'm still in a van. You're like, oh my God.
See, that's the phase where you need to work on your business, not in your business. We're at the phase where you need to work a little in and then on.
Yeah, the feedback loop, right? Well, I was just
Yeah.
going to say, like, the way you guys had set that up, that's so generous to have so many roll out the carpet literally for them. Be like, okay, come check out what we are. But I also think people change when they're ready to. That's my opinion, just from running this
Yes.
podcast and from
Yep.
life. And I think you guys, having gone through this journey yourselves, if we had talked to ourselves 4 years ago, be like, what? Like, it really is. It's really
How
rare.
do we even do that?
Yeah, it's so rare to get them at that point where they're ready for the change. But I love that you guys have given so much back to the community. And I think that speaks a lot to your character, that you're willing to help and just, hey, yep, come on down, see what we've got going on here.
Yeah, we had like a shop a month for a while there, and it was a lot.
It's still really fun to watch, like, who we can still influence. Like, we give them so much that it does take a really long time to continue to apply everything that we've taught them. Like, they're taking notes the whole time, and they go back with, like, a list of, like, so much to apply. So I think a lot of people that still came to our shop, it's still really cool to watch them still apply and have those type of learning curves. So
Yeah, there's 3 shops that we're still rooting for, like,
Yeah.
big time. Like, we love them to death, and they're still doing a really good job, and they're still growing really well, and that's not bad out of a dozen.
yeah,
It's not.
pretty good success rate.
It's really not. And like,
3 are running for it.
even if there's some folks that have visited your shop and maybe they haven't implemented the way you wanted them to, 2-3 years from now, they could meet someone else and be like, oh crap, this is what Ben and Chloe were telling me about. And then they may come back.
we get that. We also still do that. I think we still reference the time we visited Next Gen. We're like, that's
still
what
today.
he meant.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like, it's just because you're just not, I agree, you're just not ready for that, or you just don't have the other foundational knowledge behind it to fully appreciate what information is being given to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, we still do that to this day.
We replay that day that Ish gave us, like, all the time, because Ishmael, man, he had it so dialed in, and we were such a small fish when we went and visited him. So, but we took a whole bunch of notes, and as we've grown, we've tripled in size since we've visited Ishmael. So now we're starting to hit those different levels. We're like, gotcha,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
gotcha.
That's awesome.
It's so funny. It's like almost like you just hit your head, like, really?
Yeah.
So
And once again, it's so easy. We are overcomplicating it. When we heard him, or when we heard anybody bigger than us talk, we were overcomplicating it. We're like, it's no way it's that easy. No, it is. It is that easy. Business is not hard. It's the easiest, hardest thing you'll ever have to do.
You have to put effort towards it, and you have to inspire people, but
easiest, hardest
and
thing.
be consistent.
Yep. It's been the easiest, hardest thing we'll have to do. Like I said, once we get something implemented and it's rolling, it's so easy. But it's hard to, identify that, get the whole team to change, do it consistently, move,
Inspire people to do it.
Inspire people to do it. Yeah, it's it's the easiest, hardest thing you'll ever have to do.
That might be the title of this episode, Chloe. I have to say, guys, I've really enjoyed this conversation about mentorship. I don't think we've had this kind of conversation on the podcast before, and I think it's totally needed. And I love your perspective of just having gotten all that information, figuring out how to implement it, and now trying to teach it to others and seeing like how some people get it, some people don't. I think it's great. It's wonderful. So we're almost at time. So I want to give you the opportunity to geek out on anything that you may want to geek out on, but you haven't been able to geek out on yet in the context of this podcast.
There's a lot of things I always want to geek out on, but anything for you in particular?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Watch that brain thing.
As far as I think the biggest thing for us is when Titan came down and shot our shop, it showed our training facility. And I think the misconception on that is that you have to build a training facility or you have to train your people. We have a training facility so we can sharpen the tools of our people that are already skilled and that are already really embedded into the trade. We didn't build a training facility to take people from scratch to the trade because that's really hard and really, really, really expensive. So if you have a technician that, a plumbing technician, and they need to produce, let's say, $30,000 a month, and you take 6 weeks to train them, you're already down $45,000. Now, when you launch them out in the field, you're hoping that they start to produce that $30,000 a month, and that's usually not the case. So let's say their first month out, they produce $15,000. Their second month, they produce $20,000, or maybe they even progress backwards. By the time you can build a person from nothing to something, from scratch to a professional technician, you might be out $100,000 on that individual. And that's really hard to gain that back from just taking a person right off the street to train them. So if you're going to do that, make sure that you're already, you're vesting towards somebody that already has some really good skills and some really good customer service skills. And maybe you just have to, put an edge on that blade, but you don't have to make the whole knife. So just don't get it confused by looking at, at that point in time we were, $5 million shop, and we have a training facility, but it's only to sharpen the already created knife. It's not to create a knife from scratch. So a lot of people were calling us or are talking to us or, sending us questions across Facebook, and they're trying to take people from completely green to a technician, but they're only a $3 million company. And that's really trying to explain to them, don't do that. It costs way too much money. You're not a school. You
barely even have a standard yourself that you're holding your guys accountable for. What are you going to teach them? Like, just to wing it out there and hope they are naturally good?
So try to get people that are already qualified in the trade, and then, put that edge on, sharpen that knife. But don't try to take anybody from completely green to certified technician, because it's gonna sink your company.
Especially if you don't have a turnover process to be able to at least get him out there, starting doing that experience, and then get a somebody else out there to actually flip those bigger projects. If you're just kind of banking that he's going to go out there by himself and start producing, that's where you're definitely going to start feeling that hurt. It's just, that investment's just too large, especially like Ben said, for a $3 million company. Especially when you're looking to build a training facility, like, you have your own plumbing and heating system. Go use that, man. If you're swapping out systems, keep the old Betsy that you uninstalled instead of building your own.
A $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 sign-on bonus, maybe $10,000 every 6 months for a qualified technician. Grab somebody that's already good at the trade, that already has potential in the trade, And that's going to be a lot cheaper than trying to take somebody from scratch, because they might not even like the trade when you launch them out there. They might not feel comfortable charging the prices that you need to charge to keep your business healthy.
Because they didn't even realize that that's how much plumbing costs or HVAC, just as all of our customers do.
So
What?
I always feel bad when I see somebody go all out on a training facility. You know, they've seen the Titan video and they're like, oh, this is how he did it. And it's really not that way. We do have a training facility. We do use it all the time. But we're using it on technicians that are already there. And all we're doing is taking a technician from $30,000 a month to $60,000 a month. We're not taking a technician from 0 to 30. That's all we're doing. So you can geek out on something now. Go for it.
I feel like Jack's about to say something.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, that's a good topic to geek out on. You know, we have people from all different types of shop sizes that come on this podcast, and training facilities have been brought up, but it is something to consider. Like, what is the actual cost going to be? And depending on where you're at, that's gonna, you know, that is going to inform whether or not it's worth the investment for you. So thanks for talking about that, Ben. Chloe, anything you want to geek out on?
Yeah.
Oh, I think my more favorite thing that we've been, especially just fine-tuning, is the accountability process as well. I'm just trying to make it as easy as possible for the management team to be able to keep up on who, you know, what technicians in what part of the process of accountability, you know, whether that is the curbside evaluation, the ride-along, all the way up to maybe a team consulting, and then afterwards the follow-up to see if they actually met their goals. But that has been definitely, especially for somebody that's taking on more than 8 points of contact for, you know, direct reports, it is a little bit overbearing just because they have so many people they have to put through that. So I don't know if anybody else has utilized this, but it's Monday.com. I have absolutely loved it. It's been one of my favorite things to build out, and you can automate a lot of things. The biggest reason why is because I just love how Service Titan operates, and I love everything I can do with it. So, love the modular dashboard, but I do sometimes have some KPI barriers with it, especially for my managers and having multiple divisions and multiple trades. Having the modular dashboard, yes, I can filter the business units, but there's other things that we need for, you know, each division, such as plumbing or HVAC or, you know, our septic division, that it's a lot easier with the separate dashboards. So we've been utilizing custom dashboards a lot, and just making sure that we have, yes, the guys who are not performing, but also the guys who are performing. Like, I feel like a lot of times the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So as part of your accountability process, accountability is not a bad thing. It's a service you do for your employees. It's a service. And Joe taught me that. Uncle Joe taught me that. Yeah. Being a dispatcher, when you're holding guys accountable, it's just a service for them. So as a manager or an owner, when you're holding people accountable for results, it's a service, and you're giving them everything, a clear standard, a clear way to get that standard achieved, and any coaching that they need, and you're putting it in their hands. So it's no longer that Jimmy's not at the standard. What we're going to do about Jimmy, it's, okay, Jimmy's not at the standard. Let's go do a curbside with him. Okay, here's what he needs to work on. Hey, Jimmy, and always has to be positive. Here are the 4 strengths and 3 opportunities for improvement. Let's pick 2 opportunities for improvement you're going to work on in the next 14 days. And here's your action steps. And then once that happens, following up, did you meet your goals? And so getting people, because Ben has brought up a lot of guys from the field into management. So management's a different skill. So if you have a really good technician, keep him there. Keep him there, because management's a completely different skill. It's one thing to do, it's another to actually hold people accountable and have that discipline of following back up and just sticking to that standard. You have to stick to that standard. It's not the person, it's the process. So when they're not performing, it's not because of them, it's because they're not doing a step in the process. And if they're doing the process 100% of the time, but we're not achieving the KPIs we need, then it's the process. So we got to tweak that. So it's shifting their mindset to be able to stop thinking about it's the person. And it's really hard when you do take a technician out from the field and make him a manager. You really have to realize that you need to give him a management system, because your managers are going to manage based off the system you give them. So if you just bring them up and just let them go willy-nilly, they're going to be doing a lot of lip service. They're going to be doing a lot more personal attacks, you know, and not really meaning to, because that's how they feel a manager is. The word manager has a really bad stigma to it, and people think it's actually managing people. You are never managing a person when you're a manager. Never. So if you think that as a manager, I need 10 people to be a good manager, no. You manage a process. You do not manage people at the end of the day. So they have to get that thought process in their head. And I think that's where a lot of that transitional period's like, people are like, well, we need to hire our first manager, or when do we hire this manager? Because they see how many managers we have, and we're like, hold it up. No.
Yeah.
Do you have a process that you can hand off to somebody? And that's my first question to you, because my favorite was like, yeah, they're an office manager, and I'm like, okay, you have an operation manual, a job description, the tasks that they need to be doing, any way to measure their performance? No, we just gave her the title. I'm like, oh, no. Well, no wonder why you're having behavioral issues with this individual. You gave him a title. Everybody loves titles, but if it doesn't have actual, metrics to be able to measure, then they're just going to be seeking attention through doing actions, keeping themselves busy. Oh, I got this little tiny thing done. Well, Amanda, that's actually not what we want you to do. But how's Amanda supposed to know? She can't read your mind of what you think an office manager should be doing.
Yeah, a lot of times we want to get away from it, right? We're like, oh, I'm so tired of managing people. I'm so tired of talking to these technicians or whatever the case is. So I'm going to hire my first manager so I can get away from doing this task all the time. And that's the wrong way to look at it, because you're not handing over a process to, treat those people the right way. You're handing over a problem. You're like, I don't want to do this anymore, so I'm going to hire Bob over here to start doing it for me.
And hope Bob can do it better.
Yeah, and
Bob's never going to be able to do it better.
You see so many times the companies fall apart right after that, or, it's just such a wrecking ball. So definitely create a process, learn the process, and hand over a process to your new manager, and then hold them accountable for that process. Don't hand over a problem to your manager.
Yep.
But anything below $5 million, they're handing over problems. They're not handing over processes. And that's super frustrating.
We were at a point where we had so many managers in our office. They kept wanting to hire people to do we need somebody to do data entry. And we're like, well, doesn't the CFO, you and the office manager did data entry? Why do you guys need a part-time data entry person? What is going on?
52 people
at
$5 million. And now we're at 39 people at 10 million.
It's not how many people you have in the company. If you ever are like, I want to make it to 100. Okay, but what does that look like? How many seats in the bus are you going to have? How many are going to be technicians? Did you know there's actually a ratio to that?
2 to 1, 2 in the field, 1 in the office. You're trying to look for every single... I was talking to Ken the other day, and...
Ken Goodrich, name drop.
I'm sorry, you dropped this name, Ben. Would you like it? Would you like it back?
Yeah.
But I was talking to Ken the other day, and we were talking about numbers, and how you're trying to get $250,000 out of each one of your employees a year, and you have the 2 to 1 ratio from your field to your office. And he goes, well, yeah, but that's been the same number that we've been trying to do since the 90s. And I'm like, yeah, it's the same number we're trying to do nowadays, too.
Even with more technology that's more efficient, oh my goodness, that's my biggest thing is nobody automates anything. So we always have to go around and double check. How are you doing this? Because, we'll tell them, hey, you need to fix this, and we'll kind of watch them build a new process. But you have to double check that process, because a lot of times it's like, yeah, so I haven't put in this document, this, and this. I'm like, why don't you just have Service Titan email you a report? Titan auto emails reports to you, right? And they're like, oh, yeah. And I was like, yeah. So it's always helping them, too, with that.
It's a lot funner nowadays. And as you can tell, she's super smart. So she keeps me on track. And
I give him the stink eye every now and then. I'm like,
yeah.
what are you doing over there?
Because I'm still like a,
wild card.
I'm like a flamingo or something.
Let me fly.
I like to put wrenches and everything, or I have
question a lot.
The controller of the company, the CFO of the company is like, stop spending money. And I'm like, oh, but we need this.
So he takes her down, all right, let's go get this.
Yeah, I'm like, if I make her buy it, then I don't get in trouble for buying it.
Then it's technically approved. It's auto approved that way. It's like, whatever. Oh my god,
I love it.
It's fun. It's fun now. Yeah.
So much fun.
I love the dynamic, guys. I really do. I have 2 more questions for you. And by the way, the answers to your answers to the geek out question, Best answers I've heard so far, so thank you. So if you guys could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice from early in your career, what would it be?
Just keep going. I don't know. I think like everything that I've learned, I've had to have learned at that point in time. Yes, I do wish I could have ran faster and gotten the knowledge faster. I feel like everybody does once they finally learn it. But one of the biggest sayings I've heard is even popcorn is all in the same oil and it's all the same temperature, but the kernels don't pop at the same time. So having to take that step back and realizing like, okay, I wish I could have like told myself this much, but like I was saying, like I wouldn't have gone. It would have gone over my head. Any piece of advice that I would have given would have like. So
every piece just came in at the right time. Like we would learn something and apply it, and then we'd learn something else. And I don't think we would have believed in some of the pieces that we're doing now, even if we were able to tell ourselves it 5 years ago. There's no way we could have envisioned that it be working in that way.
We wouldn't really understand like the true purpose behind it either, and believed in it as much. It would have been empty if we would have given ourselves like that type of advice. It just would have been an empty thing that we applied versus what we have been doing. That's why we believe in it so much, and that's why we push so hard. It's because we have all this foundational knowledge. So while yes, I wish that we could have ran faster, so to speak, I don't think that we would have ran as fast as we can right now, because there would have not been that love, that heart behind it.
It was so lucky though. I mean, like, coming from you live from Van 145, Service Titan, like, I don't even know if we would be where we're at today without Service Titan, because it was adopting that super expensive program that everybody was questioning on how much it cost and what is this going to do, and then going down to Pantheon and getting our minds blown and networking with some of the, like, me and Chloe were riding up the elevator with
Tiger Plumbing.
Yeah, Tiger Plumbing after he got off the stage.
And we're like, oh.
And we were like in awe, like he's $10 million, and we're like asking him questions.
How did he get there? We didn't even think you could get that big. Like where we're at, you know, we knew that there were some big companies over here, but we honestly had thought at that point in time, like, boom, we're done, we're good. This is as big as we can get. But then when we went down there and we're like, you can be how much? You know, I think I remember seeing Ken Goodrich on stage and being like, how big are they? And they're even bigger now. And I'm like, oh, what? It definitely opened our eyes. And then I think
wish we would have done that earlier. To tell you the truth. I mean,
Titan.
That was the rocket ship, you know. That was the first event we have ever been to. That was the first time we ever networked. Otherwise, we were just stuck in our little box.
Little old Idaho.
So we were just really fortunate that Titan exists and really...
And it cares so much.
So
like,
much.
How... it's... Okay, I love, like, looking at old videos of Titan, like, what the program used to look like, even when we got on. Freaking love it. Because just seeing how much they care and how much, like, we have been able to create this amazing program and constantly make it better. Like, I remember... I don't think there's a lot of things we could do today without Service Titan, just because, like, how much we built around it.
And at first, we modified the software to work for what we were doing.
Yeah.
But if you really start to dive into Titan and you start to check all the boxes on it, that's, like, the way that you should operate your company.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't fight any of those boxes.
We're like, memberships? Psh, we'll never sell
rate,
those. A
turnover rate.
Average ticket, average sale versus average ticket, or
options per op.
A project. We were anti-project, so it was great. It was fantastic. I loved our mindset back when we started Titan.
If you could just fill all the boxes on Service Titan, that's how a company's supposed to operate, and that's the coolest part about software. I remember way back in 2006, 2007, just doing handwritten invoices. I'd get back to the shop. I would read every single technician invoice. I'd have to go through like 100 of them. A lot of them I would rewrite because the technician would say something inappropriate on it, like I pulled out shit, and you're like, oh, you can't say that.
That's not a word you could use on an invoice for a customer, sir.
And so I'd have to rewrite these invoices and sitting there, and I'm just like, man, could you imagine if we had something? I'm sure restaurants have something, gas stations have something but there's nobody investing into our industry, and the whole time here comes Service Titan like a wrecking ball, and
Didn't Camera System still had floppy disks up until like a
it
bit
had
ago?
VHS.
Oh, VHS!
Yeah.
For the longest time! Come on! When the USBs existed. Nuggies?
There was softwares out there, but they didn't do near what Service Titan was aiming to do, you know, what they were going to
Especially, like, how much they're able to tie everything together. Like, you could get this software, and then I remember I was trying to calculate booking rate back in the day when we didn't have Service Titan, and I had to go to 3 different places. Our software to see if the job was created, an Excel document, a Sheets document that we had the people fill out to put information in, and then the third place was our phone system that I had to go in there, line everything up, listen to the calls, and I calculated booking rates though. I knew there was a KPI before KPIs existed, but it took me like hours to figure it out. Oh my goodness, manually.
That's insane.
We were really lucky, lucky. So Service Titan's blessing.
Yeah, love it.
I didn't pay them to say that. Thank you very much.
She didn't pay us. If you're not watching the video, I will describe it to you. It says "Powered by Service Titan" in the background.
It's actually a whole bunch of stickers that Tom Howard gave us that we put everywhere.
Yeah,
so.
we just slap them on everything. You're like, you're not powered by Service Titan yet. We'll slap it on there.
Oh my goodness, guys, I love that. That's that's always great for me to hear. I've been on Service Titan's payroll for about 4.5 years now, which is insane. So I always love hearing these things, and I'm definitely going to share this with the rest of the team. I have one final question for you. I've loved every second of this conversation. If you had to choose one song to be the soundtrack of your life, what would it be?
One song.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like, okay, gotta really think about this now. Like "Don't Stop Believing" by Journey.
It works.
It's the first song that popped in my head.
It works. It works.
What's yours?
Jeez, I don't know.
It's a hard one.
Yeah, that's a hard one. All mine's rap. So the other day, Tom Howard calls me up, right? And he's like, "Oh man, you got this going on at Titan. Don't tell anybody. You got this going on. Don't tell anybody." Like that's like what he says like all the time. So don't tell anybody that I'm telling you this. But he's like, "Oh, we got this country singer. He's gonna come and sing at Pantheon, and his name's Brad. Blah blah blah." And he goes, "Have you ever heard of him? What do you think?" And I'm like, "I don't listen to country, Tom. I never heard of him." So then Tom starts singing the song to me, and I'm busting up laughing on the other side of the phone because I'm like I don't know who you're singing right now. He's like, "Well, do you know this song?" And he starts singing another song, and I'm like, I am dying. So I'm like, "Sure, Tom." I'm like, "This, yeah, go for it." So, I don't listen to country. I listen to, R&B or rap, and that's just kind of where I grew up. So
pick a song, Ben.
Yeah, we'll just...
we could do "Don't Stop Believing."
Eminem song. Yeah, "Don't Stop
Do
Believing."
an Eminem song.
That he sang at the Super Bowl. That was one of my
"Lose
favorite
Yourself."
ones, too.
Yeah.
The 8 Mile song.
Yeah.
you could do
Mom
that.
Spaghetti.
Lose yourself.
Yeah, it's true though. It's like the whole thing is like, now's your moment. You got to take it. That's how I feel. Like a lot of times, like when I listen to that song, like I'm like, yeah, get out of my way. Like this is my moment. You got to get up there and just start going for it.
Yeah, I like that. We'll go with that.
We'll go with that
We'll go
one.
with that. That's a good. Lose yourself.
Yeah, lose yourself. Yep, you gotta lose yourself in the moment when you got applying stuff and you're running for it.
Yeah.
I love that,
Hands
guys.
sweaty.
Yep.
Mom Spaghetti.
I grew up on that music too, so.
So did I. I mean, I was vibing to that Super Bowl halftime show, just like all the other millennials. Chloe and Ben Davis, guys, this was a delightful conversation. Thank you so much for donating an hour plus of your time for Toolbox for the Trades. I really, really appreciate it.
It went by fast.
I know it did.
Yeah.